Hi, you're on the Alice Reddit Stories channel. Subscribe to my channel as well as to my Facebook, the link is in the description. Enjoy watching. My girlfriend was recently diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and shortly after that she ended our relationship. Over the course of our relationship, she really struggled a lot with her own mental health, as she had already been diagnosed with anxiety and depression. She also has some complicated physical health complications, and both of these combined made it so that hospital visits were a common thing. I would have to take her to the ER, usually at like 4 a.m. on a work day, many times per year, for various health reasons, and I was always happy to support her in any way I could because I knew she lived a difficult life. I was always looking for anything I could do to try and make her life easier, whether that was giving her messages, adjustments on her back, emotional supporting, or helping her through severe panic attacks. Sometimes she'd even ask me to go to her work, if I wasn't working, to just hang out there for an hour to help her feel a bit better. There were more things I would do, but I won't go on. It was always difficult for doctors to help her with her physical conditions, and she had tried many times in the past to get help for her mental health issues, but never had any luck. At one point in the past, she was diagnosed with BPD, but refused the diagnoses as the doctor was being extremely rude and mean to her. A few months into our relationship, I was the person she leaned on the most in life when things were going bad. And I didn't have any issue with that because I always thought that's what you should do when you love someone. It felt like the right thing to do no matter how much this person needed me to be there for them. I've always handled crisis situations well and have been really understanding of anyone with what they're dealing with. She lived with her parents as she wasn't quite ready to move out yet due to all of her health complications. Which never bothered me at all since I also still lived with my family, because I financially wasn't able to move out yet. It was not always easy not living together, but we always found ways to make it work. As for her parents, her dad tried to be supportive in his own way as he'd buy her groceries, and if she was in need of going to the ER, every once in a while, he would take her or take care of the dogs for us. But other than that, he wasn't really there for her than anything much more than financial support. Her mom is one of the kindest and most resilient people I know and was there for her a lot, especially in times where I couldn't be. This became much less of the case when their grandmother, her mom's mom, started getting sick and at this point is very likely in the last year of her life. The past 2 years, the mom has had to split time between being at home and going 4 hours plus away to take care of the grandmother, where she was spending several weeks of the month helping her. Whenever she was gone, my girlfriend needed me to spend the majority of my time at their place. I didn't mind in the beginning, when I was in between contracts, but it quickly became very difficult to do when I got a job in the city that required me to commute 1 hour and 30 minutes one way every day. And with my girlfriend, I was essentially doing the job of 2.5 people, which had taken a toll on me and over the course of the past half a year as it had been so much more intense. I had also started doing video content creation when I was between contracts last year, which was something she was really supportive on, as I enjoyed it, and I quickly became successful with. I put a lot of effort into it in the beginning, as it took time to produce, but I tried to keep up with it as much as I could once I got my job in the city. I pushed myself, because of our goal, to get a house together one day and get married. I knew that with our salaries combined it would take us a really long time if ever to get there. So when this side business started picking up, I saw that as an opportunity to get us there faster. But things at work soon became very stressful, with people leaving at my job and me having to do the work of several people on top of the exhausting commute. For months it was chaos, and I even started looking for better opportunities that might have been closer to home but couldn't find anything. It was hard to get everything done in the day: work, commuting to and from, prepping meals, working out, making videos, and at the end of it all going to her place to help her with anything she needed. Many times it was just listening to her vent about her day or just hanging out, but I knew that I wasn't quite getting enough time for myself, and she knew it as well and felt guilty for it. We had many conversations about me needing that time for myself and her trying to spend more time on her own, and it got a little better this year. But as her mom kept spending more of her time away, I just kept getting more and more stressed with everything, including my work. My girlfriend was so great supporting me and listening when I needed it and often helped me with things in my side business. We had great communication and we always felt like we could talk to each other about anything. It was around this time where my girlfriend started making new friends from work and I was happy for her. She's always struggled to maintain friendships, I think largely BC of her BPD. Don't forget to support my channel by subscribing, thank you. But these friends seemed great for her and it was slowly allowing me to spend a bit more time for myself. She even got a promotion at work, which was great because she always struggled to stay in a job for very long. We loved her grandmother, and she was a huge fan of me, even sending me personalized letters and gifts for B-days and holidays, but we both knew that realistically, the situation with her grandmother wouldn't last forever. I guess with things slightly getting better, I knew there was an end in sight to a lot of this stress. I also want to note that everyone in her life really liked me. Her family took me in as one of their own, both her parents constantly praised me for how great I was to her friends adored me constantly. Even her sisters, who she didn't always get along with, wanted me to be a part of things with them because they saw how great we all got along and how much better she was doing with me. Then in June, I got sick with some stomach bug. My girlfriend was really afraid to get COVID, as not only was she immunocompromised, but so was her mom and her grandmother. We wouldn't go out to eat, see movies, vacation, see friends, and we took every single precaution possible to avoid COVID, so me getting sick meant that we had to spend at least a week or two apart. This was difficult for her and she felt so bad for me and kept telling me how much she loved me and even came to deliver food for me at the front door one time. It was then in early July that she had an episode where she said she didn't feel like she had control of her own body. I cancelled my plans and spent the day with her, and she seemed okay by the end of the night. By 4 a.m. the next morning, she needed to go to the ER, and she felt so guilty for asking me to go BC. She knew I'd need to take time off of work. Long story short, they got her to see a new psychiatrist and diagnosed her with BPD. After a very long day, we came home and she told me she felt bad for putting me through this all of the time. She would often have a sense of guilt with this stuff and felt like I was going to leave her, even though I never said or gave indication I would. I'd always reassure her that I love her, and I was here for her, and I wasn't going anywhere. And then that day I kissed her for the first time in a little while. She didn't want to kiss a much BC of COVID. That turned out to be our last kiss. It seemed like back in April she was considering if she had BPD or not, so this time in July she finally accepted it. I had done a lot of research on it since April so that I had a better idea of what it was and how I could help her with it. She then started talking to a therapist more regularly than she had in the past, and she started on new meds. She had tried being on meds many times in the past, but they always messed her up a lot, so she never stuck with it. She told me this time she really wanted to get herself sorted out, and I believed her. I think she was seeing just how drained I was. Once she started taking her meds, she started losing a lot of weight and always felt sick. But this meant that again, I couldn't go and see her until my family and I all tested negative. When we were finally able to see each other again, she felt a little off. She had a quicker temper with me and felt kind of standoffish at times. We still had great moments, but something felt off and I figured it was just the meds. A few days later, she told me about all of these things that she found frustrating about me. It was things like not spending enough time organizing my space or not spending enough time working on my taxes for my side business. I vocalized to her that I had been working on these things, but haven't been able to get them to where I wanted to, with everything that had been going on this past year. But I promised her I would do better and put more effort into it. A few days later, she said she wanted to talk about spending 2 weeks away from one another so we could both work on ourselves. I told her that I didn't feel great with that idea and I had a bad feeling about it, but she reassured me that she wasn't trying to jeopardize our relationship and that she still loved me. She then went into issues she had with me again, like an unresolved issue with my parents, and I said I would use these 2 weeks to work on all of it and she would use this time to work on her hyper-attachment to me. We discussed her using other people in her life more when in crisis. She said we could still see each other every now and then to go grab coffee together or something and catch up, but she felt limited contact for now was the only way she could work on her dependency to me. After a couple of days, I told her that I had spoken to my parents about her unresolved issue and they wanted to apologize. She told me she wanted to wait a week for her mom to come back from the city, so we did. The weekend before we were supposed to meet, I asked her if she wanted to go grab coffee and catch up, and she told me that she wasn't in a place for that yet, but was still good to meet with my parents and resolve stuff a few days later. Don't forget to support my channel by subscribing, thank you. At this time, I noticed she has posted a nice selfie of herself on social media, as she rarely does, and it was getting way more likes than usual. I never really cared for these sorts of things, but this time I was just curious to see who had liked her photo, and one person who was from the city stood out. This guy looked like her type, and later I learned that every post of hers after that he liked, and they started following each other. I didn't try and reach into it too much at the time though. The day she came to resolve things with my parents, she had brought some of my stuff as she said she was cleaning up, which kind of felt weird, but I knew she was there to move forward with my parents, so I tried to stay positive. She then told me she got an IUD that week, and how painful it was. I asked if there was anything I could do to help, but there wasn't. I was happy for her because I knew that how much she really wanted one. I had never pushed her to have one, but she was always interested in getting one since she wasn't able to take birth control due to that messing her up. I asked her why now, and she said she had gotten coverage from work. But she's had that coverage for quite some time. She then told me she asked a lot of people who had gotten it and they encouraged her to get it as it would help with period cramps. I didn't try to ask into it too much more since I only thought this was a good thing. Then she told my parents about the IUD, which looking back on it now is weird, and we resolved the issues she had, and they were happy to welcome her back with open arms and wanted to do more family things with her. Later that night, she took me up to my room and I was showing her how much more organized I was and how much I had been working on myself. I had even started seeing a therapist and it was going well. She was proud of me for all the work I was putting in and was noticing it all with a smile on her face. But right after I told her that she broke up with me, saying that she really can't be in a relationship right now as she needs to focus on herself. That she's been trying to get better, but she was finding it difficult while being in a relationship as her separation anxiety was too much. That she had built up a resentment in me for all of these small things she wanted me to get done. That I needed to work on myself. I told her I thought we could work on things together, but she didn't agree. She said that months down the road, when we both felt like we were in a better space, that then we could talk. I felt so blindsided by this whole thing that I barely knew what to say back to her. I missed work the next day as it was all I could think about. A 6-year relationship and everything I had put into it, gone just like that. I was devastated. I called her the next day after she was done work, saying that I needed to talk, so we met up and I wanted to talk about it more as I wasn't fully understanding it. We had been through so much. How could we not try to at least have a better balance of time with each other and see how that goes? I came up with so many different solutions, and she was just so grumpy and mean and bitter towards me. She became really angry with me, and it was clear that I was getting nowhere while she was like this, so I left. A few days later, she called me like 8 times asking for help with her dog. She was in tears and panicked, and I still loved her and loved her dog so much. I helped raise them as pups, slept with them, fed them, helped take them to appointments when I could, and go for walks and big plays in the yard. They really loved me back, as I think they knew just how much I did for them. So when she called me, even though it felt a little weird to go help, I couldn't say no. My family stopped me from trying to go, but I went anyways. I was about halfway there before she called me saying her dad was going to help her bring her dog to the ER. My therapist recommended that I try and set better boundaries with her, as my girlfriend was wanting to use other people in her life for stuff like this. And I set up a time to talk with her about this, and she said that she called me because I was the only option and someone who could lift the dog for her. She was very blunt and cold with her response. A few days after this convo, she took me off all of her social medias and any joint streaming platforms we had. About 2 months have passed now, and I've been working on myself a lot. Feeling pretty good about my progress, I started thinking when and how I was going to reconnect with her. Then about 2 weeks ago, she contacted me about related to a purchase we had made together. During resolving this, I then found out she had gotten COVID a few days prior to this. She said no one else got it in her family, but I really thought, with how careful she was, that it would be very hard for her to get it. I get that it happens though, but still. I noticed after that convo she had started looking at my social media stories, and I had been targeting that week to reconnect with her, just by going for a walk or even seeing the dogs, because I really missed all of them. So last week, before I sent the message to her, I checked her social media to see what was new with her, and I saw that she had eaten out inside of a restaurant, and it was in the city. This was something she would never have done during COVID with me or anyone, because it was too risky for her, plus she hated the city. I had this really bad feeling TBH, so I went to check that new guy that was following her. And there they are on a date at this restaurant, going to an animal farm and later carving pumpkins together back at her place until at least 1 a.m., based on the timestamp of his story on IG. I was so confused by this and heartbroken at the same time. Was she lying to me this whole time about our breakup and just started dating this other guy? How long had they been together and when did it start? Before the end of our relationship? I noticed her uncle and cousin were following this guy now, as well as her friend from work. And that date really didn't seem like the kind of date where it was a first date. I felt like she had either cheated on me, or at the very least lied to me about a big reason why we broke up. I still wanted to reconnect with her, so the next day I messaged her to do that. She said she didn't think it would be productive for her and said she has nothing to share. I then said there are some things that I've seen that have made me uncomfortable and I just wanted to try and understand. She started getting snappy with me, saying that what I said was feeling like an attack and that she shouldn't be of any concern to me right now. I apologized if it came across the wrong way, but I felt like it would be best spoken about in person, as there's a lot of stuff I need to say to her. I've been working with my therapist and that they think I need to say this to get some things sorted out. That she could choose the time and place, and if she wanted to bring someone there to make her comfortable. She then started getting furious with me, saying I was bullying her into it and she has nothing more to discuss, as she said everything she needed to and nothing will change. That I'm not owed her time and that hashing it out again is just going to make her angry and have her snap at me, and it won't be the productive convo I want to have. That she's made it clear long before we ended things why she was unhappy. And then she threw in that working with her therapist, she learned just how much our relationship affected her anxiety. That was the last time we spoke. I really don't know how to handle this or what to do. A big part of me just wants to call her out on what I've seen. I was in a relationship with her for 6 years, and I don't feel like I've been able to talk about everything I've wanted to, even if it doesn't change the outcome. I feel like there's so much I need to say upon reflection, and now that I've had time to process it. Part of me wants to try an approach where I don't bring up this new guy and just talk to her about other stuff with our relationship that I hadn't said before. I'm afraid that if I bring up this guy, that things will get ugly. Part of me still has little hope that 6 months or a year down the road things may somehow have a chance to work out. I just feel so hurt by this new guy being in her life so soon, as she said she couldn't be in a relationship so she could work on herself. She seemed so committed to do that she was willing to drop the most kind, stable, and loving part of her entire life. The person that was always there for her. I've reached out to my therapist on this, and they said you could try and talk to her about other things not involving this guy. Or just flat out call her out on it. But that I should only do either once I spent a lot of time thinking about it and once I was completely certain, but that she and/or I are both likely to get hurt in the process. My sister doesn't want me to message this girl again, as she thinks she will get nasty and say things to me that'll hurt me way more than I already am. One of my friends tells me it's just not worth it anymore. I don't know what to do. I know a lot of these actions of her can be explained through her BPD. The fact that she let it go undealt with for so long is a huge part in this. I tried to encourage her to get more help, but it didn't always happen. I felt like I could only push so much, meanwhile she was always looking for something for me to improve upon, and I always did. But finally, when I couldn't make enough time or have the mental or emotional energy to do what she wanted to, then she was done with me. I know I've been saying a lot of negative things about this girl in this post, but she is truly one of the kindest and most thoughtful people I've ever met in my life. The kindness and caring nature she has to things she loves is amazing, and I felt that for 6 years. She helped me with so much of my life, and we were so heavily involved in every aspect of each other's lives. We had so many similar interests that we could spend so much time together doing them every day. She told me I was the only person that she never got tired on hang out with ever, and I truly wouldn't be the person I am today without her. Which is why I'm having such a difficult time accepting this. I'm always someone who wants to try and make things work, until we've exhausted all our options. And she won't even entertain it or even have a convo just to catch up. I feel so hurt by her right now and what she did. I've always put her first in almost every part of our relationship. Part of me wants to call her out because I feel like finally I'd be doing something for me and not for her. But as my sister said, I'm afraid of things getting turned ugly. I'm also afraid of never seeing her dogs again or hearing her voice again. Even if we're not together, I still like to talk to her and maybe see the dogs every once in a while. I don't know if there's any option here, besides just saying nothing and walking away, that would do that. Does anyone have any advice how they would move forward with this? Is it as simple as not answering her? Or calling her out on what she's done? If anyone has any experience being in a relationship with someone with BPD, that would be of great help here. TLDR, how do I move forward after my GF of 6 years who recently was diagnosed with BPD? She wanted to work on herself and said she can't be in a relationship, but I found out that she's seeing someone and that it might have started before we were done. Should I call her out on it or just walk away? If you or someone you know has BPD, any insight would be appreciated. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel. There are many interesting articles ahead.